Yes guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel. This video, I won't lie, I don't really have a script for it, so I don't really know what I'm going to say. As you can tell by the title, it's 5 things that I've learned about the Bundesliga. Obviously, it's been about a week now that I've been on Bundesliga Twitter, I guess you would call it. I've got obviously a lot of new ties to people in the Bundesliga and German football fans and stuff like that, so I wanted to just make a little video sort of documenting things that maybe people outside the Bundesliga wouldn't know. For example, there was a lot of things that surprised me about late when I've been learning about the Bundesliga. Obviously, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that I ask a lot of questions about the Bundesliga, and I just want to learn as much as I can about the country and about the league. So there's definitely been a lot of things that have surprised me. Obviously, every day I'm putting up tweets asking things, just random things like your club's favourite kits, just trying to learn about it. I don't know how to explain it, I just want to learn about each club. I want to learn why people like the clubs, what, like all these sort of things, what happens at clubs and reasons for certain things happening in the league. So this is just 5 things that have surprised me about being in the Bundesliga. As I said, I don't have a script, so this is going to be like a little mini podcast, or a short form podcast if you could call it that. I'm just going to be like talking about my thoughts as it goes, so this might be an absolute mess, I won't lie. There probably will be a lot of editing and a lot of cuts, so expect that. Let me know in the comments other things that I maybe don't know about the Bundesliga. Either follow me on Twitter and let me know, it should pop up on the screen somewhere here if I know how to edit that, or let me know in the comments, and let's just get straight into it. One of the things everybody knows in world football is RB Leipzig are just the most hated club in Germany, for obvious reasons. But one thing I didn't know is that people are also not a fan of Wolfsburg and Hoffenheim as well, because they seem to have companies that own them instead of the 50+1 rule, which that alone, the 51+ rule, is something that sets the Bundesliga like separate from the rest of the world. That stands out so much. The fan culture especially in Germany is what sets the Bundesliga apart from the rest of world football, essentially. It's one of the main reasons that I got into the Bundesliga was seeing the fans and how they were on Thiago's videos, watching the fan cultures and the way the fans are in the stadiums. Obviously, like, you can get to like the 3rd division and some of the stadiums have insane crowds, and fairly big stadiums, you know, and even into Bundesliga, you're going to have like historic clubs this season, and the fan culture is going to be insane. So for me, I think that's such a crucial part of German football, and it should be a crucial part of every game, every football league. Unfortunately, that's not how it is, but Germany just is that little bit higher than everybody else because of that, in my opinion. And the fact that Wolfsburg and Leverkusen, Leipzig, Hoffenheim, these clubs don't follow it. I'd looked up Hoffenheim and it says that apparently, I've got the notes here, it says Hoffenheim was part of this but are now not as of November. So apparently as of November they're now a fan-owned club again. I don't know how true that is. Again, I'm in Scotland, we don't hear about this stuff. The only team we hear about in terms of not being 50+1 is RB Leipzig, for obvious reasons. So this was definitely number 1 on the things that surprised me in the Bundesliga. Number 2, again, being in the UK, you hear a lot about Bayern Munich and the players they sign. And for me personally, I can't speak for also the rest of the UK or the rest of outside of Germany, but for me, I always seen Bayern Munich as the team that just went out, and if anyone had a good season in the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich just went and bought them. The likes of like Goretzka, for example, who's also very good at Schalke. Obviously now that it's only been a week and I can see already that that's not true for the most part. Obviously they've signed players like Ito this season, and obviously they signed Sieb as well from Gruvia Thurf. I probably pronounced that name awfully there, but like, of course clubs are going to sign players from their own country, of course they are, because there's a homegrown rule in Europe and stuff like that. You need to have obviously German players playing for German clubs, Scottish players playing for Scottish clubs. Of course you need that. So obviously these clubs are going to buy players from within their own league. But what I didn't know is how often Borussia Dortmund essentially just buy threatening players in terms of clubs do well, Borussia Dortmund just go and buy their players. For example, like, you might as well just call Borussia Dortmund Stuttgart at this point. The amount of players that they seem to want to buy from Stuttgart is crazy. Obviously, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think buying 9 players from one club is obviously insane. Obviously, that's not what Dortmund have done. But yeah, from an outsider's perspective, you would think it was Bayern, the way the media goes on about Bayern. But it's definitely more likely Dortmund that buy from threats, if that makes sense, like clubs who are more of a threat to them than Bayern Munich, which is definitely not something before I came into the Bundesliga space that I would have thought. Another thing that surprised me, actually, this one, I don't think anywhere else is like this in terms of, in Germany, a lot of clubs seem to have friendships. Like, for example, Cologne and Dortmund, or I'm not sure about the other ones. I know the Cologne and Dortmund one because obviously I follow Cologne a lot more. But it seems like, even from Twitter, when I've been like communicating with people on Twitter, it seems like people have like 2 teams in Germany, for example. Like, I've seen people with like St. Pauli and Werder Bremen, or Dortmund and Cologne, or there's always like a combination of 2 clubs. It's something I'm probably going to ask more about on Twitter because I want to understand it more. I've not looked too much into that yet as to why that's a thing. But it's definitely something that surprised me, like, especially like in Scotland, for example. We, like, obviously, as you can see, I'm a Celtic fan. We don't have friendship clubs, I suppose. Like, people will say Celtic and Hibs are like, or Hibs are like the mini Celtic, or Hearts or the mini Rangers. But realistically, Hibs don't like Celtic and Hearts don't like Rangers, and vice versa. Nobody in Scotland seems to like each other, if that makes sense. So it's strange to me. It's strange to me to have like a friendship club with someone from your own country. Obviously, Celtic have like friendship clubs with clubs in Mexico, and even St. Pauli, for example, have a friendship with Celtic. So I can get it from that standpoint. Maybe it's like because there's so many people in Germany. I don't know. I'll need to look into it more and understand it. But that was definitely one of like the main surprises for me, was learning that clubs in Germany have friendship clubs also in Germany. Like, that's mad to me. Let me know in the comments, why is that? Why do clubs have friendship clubs in their own country? I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing at all. I don't want people to think I'm saying it's a bad thing. I don't think it is. Again, the fan culture in Germany is so much better than everywhere else in the world, so I'm genuinely just interested to find out why it is and maybe get a better understanding for it, I suppose. Now, this one, if you've seen my most recent short, you probably expect this to be in the video. I had absolutely no idea whatsoever how big of a club Eintracht Frankfurt are. Now, obviously, I put the tweet up the other day saying, what did I say? Something like, what would you say are the top 5 biggest clubs in Germany? And a surprising amount, like, obviously you always have the Bayern, Dortmund, Schalke. The rest of them seem to be interchangeable between maybe like 10 other clubs. And there was a lot of very strong opinions on that thread as well, to be fair. But yeah, the amount of people saying Frankfurt. Obviously, I'm so grateful for Frankfurt for what they did to Rangers in the Europa League final. Of course I am. I'll forever be thankful to Frankfurt, and I will never say a bad word about that club. But I had no idea they were so well supported and they were so big in Germany, for example. Like, you hear about clubs in Germany, you hear Bayern, you hear Dortmund, you hear Schalke, you hear Stuttgart, even to a point Werder Bremen, you hear Leipzig. Unfortunately, you hear about Leipzig, annoyingly. But you hear about all these clubs, but you never ever, at least in the UK, again, I can't speak outside of the UK obviously, but in the UK you don't hear about Frankfurt. The first time I heard about Frankfurt, without like doing my own research on German football and knowing them through myself was the European Cup final against Rangers. That's the first time in the British media, for example, that I had ever heard of Frankfurt. Obviously, I knew who they were before that because I play FIFA and stuff like that. And I know they're a great team. They've always been a great team. But in UK media, I think that genuinely was the first time in my lifetime that UK media had ever mentioned Eintracht Frankfurt. And for me, that was strange, because now that I know how big they are, and I've spoke to people who have told me how big they are and told me their history, essentially, and I've obviously looked up bits myself, yeah, it's absolutely insane to me how big Eintracht Frankfurt actually are as a club, how well supported they are, how well known they are outside of Germany, like in other parts of the world, obviously like Austria and stuff like that as well. Yeah, that one just completely flew a spanner in the works for me. When I said pick your top five, I thought it, honestly, I thought it would have been Bayern, Dortmund, Schalke, Hamburg, and like Cologne or Nuremberg. That was probably the six I would have thought of, just off the top of my head. But there was so many people that said Frankfurt, and it was genuinely a shock to me. But I'm glad that this is why I'm putting these tweets up. People might think, oh, he's just tweeting constantly just to get interactions or whatever. It's not. It's not. I genuinely want to learn, and if I had to put that tweet up and ask that question, I would never have known that Frankfurt were as big as they are. So, yeah, fair play, Frankfurt. I was not familiar with your game, as people say on Twitter. And thank you again for beating Rangers. God bless Frankfurt. And the final thing that I learned in the last week about German football is women's football in Germany is so much bigger than probably anywhere else in the world. Because when I think, other than like Barcelona and Lyon, you don't hear about women's football other than German football. It seems like the German football women's league is a lot more appreciated and a lot more advertised in Germany than women's football in any other league in the world. Obviously, you hear about Barca and Lyon because they seem to be like the two best teams, I think. I don't know. They're the two teams I've heard of anyway. Obviously, the likes of Alexia Putellas and stuff like that. Like, you're always going to hear about Barcelona. But, yeah, like, I don't know teams in the German Women's League in terms of, obviously I know like Frankfurt and I know there's like Dortmund or Cologne or whatever. Like, I know that these women's teams exist. I couldn't name a full 11, but I could name individual players from like almost every team, which I couldn't name that in any other league in the world in terms of women's football. So I definitely think Germany is like leading the way for women's football in terms of how much it's being shown. Now, I know in Scotland, like this week, Aberdeen have just become the first team in the UK, it might be worldwide, I don't know, to announce their kits with the women's team. They've not used the men's team to announce their kits this season. They've used the women's team for like the promo videos and photos and stuff like that, which is very cool. And I'd like to see women's football get bigger in Scotland. But I definitely think if Scotland and other countries want to push the women's game, they need to look closer at Germany and how they're doing it, because I think German's women's football could blow up very soon with how much it seems to get pushed and the support that it's getting. I'm seeing people on Twitter again talking about women's football and men's football. You don't see that in any other sort of bubble of football leagues. Definitely don't see it in Scotland, don't see it in England as much. Maybe the women's national teams, but that's it. So yeah, I think Germany is definitely pushing forward with that as well. That is it for what I've learned. Obviously I've learned more, but these are like 5 points I wanted to talk about. This video, again, I don't really know what I'm doing with this one. I'm just making it up as I go along. Hopefully it's okay. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. And I've got a few video ideas coming up that I'm going to try and just get recorded, get them edited, and then just upload them gradually over the next few weeks, just so that I have videos like backed up, ready to be uploaded. But if you have any ideas for any videos you would like to see, please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment, because that helps me, I think. I don't know. I don't really know much about YouTube, to be honest with you. And yeah, anybody you think would be interested in an outsider's perspective on German football, please let them know about the channel, because I'm going to try and upload as much as I can. And again, please don't take any of my opinions too seriously. Like, I'm learning about the league. I don't know much about the league. I'm learning about it. So things that I say might be wrong. I'm just looking at it from an outsider's perspective again, and hopefully all goes well. But thank you so much for watching the video. If you've watched this far, you're an absolute legend. And yeah, until next time, I shall see you later.